What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to an airplane ran out of fuel at 41,000 feet. Here's what happened next by RealLifeLore. Now, I really like RealLifeLore's videos. They're normally really cool. And yeah, I assume if an airplane runs out of fuel at 41,000 feet, one, airplanes can glide, and if you're that high, you can probably glide for pretty far. So I don't know what happened, but I'm going to assume what happened is that they flew to the nearest airport and landed. Very exciting story, but I think that's what probably happened, but I don't know. Anyway, with that being said, the original links are in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to RealLifeLore, and without any further ado, let's begin.
Every single day, over 100,000 flights take place up in the skies.
Really? 100,000? I didn't realize that. I'm kind of scared of going on planes because of getting into a plane crash, but I didn't realize 100,000 plane flights a day happen. And plane crashes only happen, you know, once every, I don't know, few months or something, I want to say. So if you're doing 100,000, it kind of makes it really safe if you think of it, like, just think odds-wise.
Between cities all across the world. Right now, as you're watching this video, there's probably about 5,000 or so planes full of people flying over just the United States alone.
Wow.
Flying by airplane is by far the safest possible way for you to travel anywhere today in the 21st century.
Yeah, I know, like, the odds of you getting into a car crash are really high. Like, I've been in one. My cousin's been in one, my parents have been in one, my friend's been in one. Most people I know have been in a car crash. You know, I think the odds of you getting into one in your lifetime are really high. But I guess the odds of you getting into a plane crash aren't that high at all. Because 100,000 airplanes a day are flying. It's not like there's a crash per day. It's more like there's a crash every month or two or something like that.
But accidents do still happen sometimes. If you're driving your car on the way to work and you run out of gas, you may just have to pull over and push it or hitchhike over to the nearest gas station.
Yeah, like in a car you can have a lot of accidents, but the odds of you surviving them are a lot higher than if you're in a plane and have an accident.
But when you run out of gas on your plane while you're in the middle of flying it, your options are all pretty much equally shit. And that's exactly the
I did not expect him to swear.
Situation that the crew of Air Canada Flight 143 faced back on July 23rd,
1983. Oh, that's a long time ago. Have people learned how to do things properly and this isn't a problem anymore?
1983. The day before, their plane was flown from Toronto to Edmonton and received its routine maintenance checks. On the morning of the 23rd, the plane was flown from Edmonton over to Montreal, where the old crew got swapped out for our new crew that takes part in this story, including Captain Robert Pearson with over 15,000 hours of flight experience.
15,000 hours? Wow. That's a long time.
And First Officer Maurice Quintal with over 7,000 hours.
It's a weird profile pic.
It's important to note that at the time, Canada was in the middle of converting from barbarian imperial units over to the glorious metric system for their aviation industry. But Air Canada had so far only began using the
Wait a minute, let me guess what's happened here. Wait, so if they're switching from metric to imperial, what I think probably happened is that the amount of fuel they put in the plane was in gallons instead of liters, something like that. Or maybe it was the other way around. I don't know, but I know gallons and liters are different, right? I assume they filled it up with the wrong numbers for the wrong unit. Let's say the jet would require 100 gallons of gas. If they put 100 liters in instead, they would run out of gas so fast because I don't know the conversion. It's like, you know, there are multiple liters in a gallon. So if they're all of a sudden short gas because they didn't do the conversion right, it makes complete sense how they could run out of gas so high up.
Metric system on their brand new 767 planes, which of course Air Canada Flight 143 was one of. Every other plane besides the 767s in the Air Canada fleet were still using Imperial units, and this caused a bit of confusion on the part of the refueling team, who were instructed to load up the plane with 22,000.
Here we go.
300.
Wait, they weigh in pounds? Or not pounds, but kilograms? I didn't know gas was put like that. I thought it was, you know, a certain amount of gallons or whatever, but no.
100 kilograms of fuel. Unfortunately, they filled up the plane with 22,300 pounds of fuel.
Oh boy, that's bad, that's bad. The conversion rate from pounds to kilograms is 2.2, I believe. So for every 2.2 pounds, you have 1 kilogram. So they filled up the plane with around half as much fuel as needed.
instead, which was only about half of the fuel that they needed to reach
that's
Edmonton.
horrible.
The flight crew approved of the fuel without noticing the error, took off, and didn't even think about it until they were
It makes sense. Like, it's such a simple little error. I'm surprised this didn't happen more often.
41,000 feet high up in the air, and an alarm went off signaling that their left engine had quit working.
But do they not have fuel gauges on airplanes? Like, they couldn't see that, oh, the fuel looks like it's getting really low. We might have a problem here. Do they not notice that?
They were only about halfway through their trip to Edmonton, and with only one engine working, they
Yeah, because they only have half the amount of gas.
decided to divert to nearby Winnipeg for an emergency landing. Unfortunately for them though, quickly after the left engine went out, the right engine followed suit and died as well. This was of course because their plane had run out of fuel 41,000 feet high up in the sky, and with the loss of power,
Oh, that's terrifying.
loss in electricity for the entire plane, which shut off most of the instrument panels.
Okay, did they crash or did they survive? Like, you're 41,000 feet up. You can glide for a while, but like, how far are they away from their target?
Inside of the pilot's cockpit. Captain Pearson and First Officer Quintal were now responsible for somehow getting all 61 of their passengers and crew on board to safety without any fuel and with only very basic instruments. And they knew that they didn't have much time. The first thing they did was to frantically search through their onboard emergency checklist for the section about flying a plane with both engines out, but they quickly discovered that that section just didn't exist.
It didn't exist. Oh, that sucks so much.
This situation had never been covered before in their flight simulator training, and Air Canada
You think that that would have been covered though? Like flying with both engines out? Like you'd think that would be a situation they would at least discuss.
corporate had just assumed that an incident like this would never happen, so nobody was really prepared for it. Luckily,
No kidding.
on board, Captain Pearson also just happened to be an experienced glider pilot, and decided
Well, 15,000 hours of flying, that's a lot of experience.
to do the only logical thing, glide the plane down to a super serious emergency landing somewhere. Unfortunately for everybody
Wait, so they aren't even gonna go land at an airport? They're just gonna do an emergency
on
landing?
board, neither of the pilots had access to a vertical speed indicator, which indicates the rate at which the aircraft is descending. This meant that the pilots didn't know with certainty how long they could continue gliding for before the plane inevitably smashed into the ground.
They don't have that, like, instrument? Why don't they have that? Have they now? Do they now have that? Like, you think that would be a thing they would add just for safety?
Captain Pearson made his best guess as to what the optimal gliding speed for the plane was, around 250 miles per hour, and First Officer Quintal began frantically calculating if they could still reach their intended emergency landing spot at Winnipeg. Using the mechanical backup instruments on board to figure out their altitude, and measuring that against the distance traveled that they were traveling provided by air traffic control, and he figured out that they had dropped 5,000 feet in altitude in only 10 nautical miles of gliding, which meant that
Wait, so for every 10 miles, the plane's dropping 5,000 feet? So if you're 40,000 feet up in the air, what is that? 5 times 7, I think is 40, right? So you can go for, is that 70 miles? I think you can go for 70 miles before you're 1,000 feet up. 70 miles is not much at all. Like, this to here, I don't know, but I could assume that's more than 70.
Winnipeg was too far away. Thinking quickly, Quintal suggested that they land at an old decommissioned Royal Canadian Air Force base at Gimli where he used to serve as a pilot. Captain Pearson and Air Traffic Control all agreed on the plan, but unknown to all of them, the former Air Force base had since been converted into a racetrack, and
Well, it looks like the racetrack's going to be getting some surprise
at the
visitors.
time of their crisis, a race was in the middle of being hosted there, and part of the
Please tell me we have footage of this happening with the airplane landing. I mean, this was back in the 80s, so we might not. Cameras didn't exist back then, or cell phone cameras. But I really hope we have footage of it.
decommissioned runway was being used as a drag strip. As they were getting close to the old runway that's now a drag strip, they used a gravity drop to force the landing gear down without using any power. It became apparent that they were coming in too high and too fast, but they decided that they had no other choice and they surged ahead anyway.
YOLO, I guess, right?
There were a few things that made their landing extremely difficult though.
Friggin' cars on the racetrack, I would assume, is gonna be one of them.
First, without any engines working, their plane was making almost no noise, and so people on the ground at the racetrack had no warning of their sudden landing. Second, their nose wheel had failed to lock into place during the gravity drop.
Oh no, so it's gonna hit the ground and just slam.
Third, the plane had automatically deployed a wind turbine on the side of the plane to provide power for the hydraulic steering system since the main engines were dead. As long as wind was blowing and causing the turbine blades to spin, they had good ability to steer. But as they slowed down on their approach,
the blades would spin less. My goodness. I hope, this kind of situation taught plane builders or whatever, it taught them how to do things better so that this is not likely to happen nowadays.
Blades on the turbine span slower, which generated less power, which caused the plane to be increasingly more difficult to steer and control the slower that they went. But two almost miraculous other things happened that saved them from disaster. First was the nose wheel actually failing to lock into position. As soon as
Wait, that failing saved them?
the wheels of the plane touched down on the runway, Captain Pearson braked really hard and the nose wheel collapsed and was forced back up into its well. That caused the nose of the aircraft to smash into the ground, bounce back up, and then finally scrape across the ground.
Yeah, that's what would happen. What, did doing this make it so that they stopped sooner? So that they didn't go off of the racetrack or whatever? Maybe that's what happened.
The added friction of this helped to slow the airplane down even more and kept it from veering off into the crowd surrounding the plane on either side.
Oh, that's right, there's a crowd there watching. Yeah, that could have ended really badly.
Pearson also applied an extra right brake, which caused the main landing gear to straddle a guardrail that had been placed in the center of the runway, which created even more extra drag. Finally, Air Canada Flight 143 safely
I wish we had footage of this happening.
Came to a complete stop on the ground 17 minutes after they first lost their fuel and had their engines shut down. Nobody on board the plane or on the ground was seriously injured, and following an internal investigation...
What about mentally injured? I'm pretty sure that would scar a lot of people. All those people on this flight probably were like, yeah, I'm not flying again. I don't blame
Air
them.
Canada, Captain Pearson was demoted for 6 months, and First Officer Quintal was suspended for 2 weeks for allowing the whole thing to happen in the first place. However, they did successfully appeal their...
They were demoted? They were punished? Oh my goodness. Like, was it really their fault? The people putting in the gas in the first place were the ones who are responsible.
Suspensions, and they were awarded the first ever diploma for outstanding airmanship by the FAI because of the incident. They both continue to work as pilots for the rest of their careers without another major incident taking place, and the 767
That's wild.
continued in service for Air Canada until it was finally retired in 2008, almost 25 years later. The lesson from the whole story is...
I was gonna say, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's a punch in the face or what, but like, imagine being like punished for your actions when it wasn't really your fault. And then like, then you're given an award like right after. It's like, well, what the frig? The award doesn't feel sincere at that point as you were initially punishing me. I don't know, it doesn't make sense. Also, like, did they not have like a fuel gauge or something? That has to be a thing on airplanes. You should be able to tell how much fuel the airplane has left, right? When they were flying, did they not look at the fuel and be like, oh, why is it so low when we're not even halfway there? Like, they should have seen this coming beforehand, and they could have probably fixed this whole thing, before it and actually landed at an airport. So it's weird. Do they not have like a fuel gauge? I'm confused.
Is that bad math can kill you, but good math afterwards can still save you. Basically,
big brain time.
If everybody just knew how to use conversions and math properly beforehand, this entire thing would never have happened in the first place.
Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. Oh my goodness. I can easily see how this happened, and I can't, like, I'm surprised it didn't happen more often. Like, if they were changing from, the units, it's such an easy and simple mistake. But, yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up if you're new, and subscribe to the family. I've really enjoyed this. I think I'd rate this LifeLore video out of a 10. I don't know. Maybe like a 6.2. It was pretty good. But, yeah, with that being said, see you guys next time. Boop.